teach you about what it means to be a human being. I want to teach you about yourself, your kids, your spouse, and something very interesting about humans by telling you a dark personal story. That's right. I want to kind of be vulnerable and I want to open up and share a really dark personal story from my past, which still affects my present, as a way of helping you to really know yourself and to know your children and to know your spouse and to just be the best version of yourself, to push yourself, to grow, to make impacts in the world and your kids. So I'm going to tell you a story that on the surface is about pornography, but really what the story is about intimacy. And when I was a freshman in high school, I was really into doorbell ditching. I was like, that's one of my favorite pastimes. I'm just like doorbell ditching all through middle school, and it just brought me so much happiness to go and push someone's door and then you go run away and hide behind a car or a bush and be like, and just be giggling and laughing and watch them open the door. And, we were kind of like thrill seekers. So we would push ourselves to get closest to the door, or like if somebody got crazy on us and got all weird, that would be the best. And they'd just be like sending a huge Evite over. Please do this to me again. And I just loved it. Those are growing up in the 90s like that. Let's go. Just riding our bikes around, and screens weren't out. It just sounds so old right now. But one day something really interesting happened. My buddies Lance and Brad and I were doing some solid doorbell ditching. Yeah, we continued that into our freshman year. I had all types of friends. And it was a trash day. And so people were putting their trash bins out on the curb. And there was these two big boxes next to this one man's recycle bin. And so being the person that I was, it was just like a no-brainer. We're going to open up this box, this mystery box, because there's clearly stuff inside, and see what's in there. And to my total happiness, what was inside was a whole bunch of old school Sports Illustrated magazines, like vintage style. I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool. Look at this. You got old Montana, Joe Montana, Bo Jackson. You got Joe Namath era. You got these old things. I was like, oh, man, this is kind of cool. Some of these might be collector's items. Maybe we can sell them or just keep them. And then we glanced at the second box. And I remember vividly saying to my buddies, and they might have been in 8th grade. I think it was nice. Gosh, wouldn't it be great if there's just a bunch of pornos in there? So we open it up, and what do we see? Well, that's true. There was probably about 50 porn magazines, maybe 75 in this box. And so lots of giggling and yelling and screaming and joys of happiness. And we did what felt right to us at the moment. I picked up this big box, being the leader and the alpha male, and I said, guys, let's go back to my house and look at these and divvy them up. So we come into my house, and my mom was like, hey, what's in the box? And I was, it's just Brad's old Super Nintendo, Mom. We're just going to go upstairs and look at it. Of course, lied just right through my teeth. So go into the room, and we open up the box, and we start putting them all around the room because we were going to have the first ever porno draft, where there's going to be a first round pick, and then the second guy can pick, and we can get your pick of the porn. So now we're up in this bedroom, and there's just porn magazines everywhere, and there's just three, very happy young men in this room. At least there was one. And because I'd never really seen porno before, what I'd seen growing up is there was channel 99, and you can see there's these squigglies, and you could hear them doing oh, I'm not gonna do the sounds. And you could hear them making the sounds. It was Playboy channel or Penthouse channel or whatever. So I was just really curious, what is this? I was just very curious. And of course, nobody had ever told me pornography was bad or wrong or dangerous or there's anything wrong with it. In fact, I had seen, some porn in one of my buddies. He kept some dirty porn stuff in his bedside bedside table. And this man was like a very successful lawyer, a pillar of the community, and they he shared it with his wife. So to me, it was just being like, oh, that's kind of weird, but okay, I guess this is just what men do. And even one of my own relatives, I don't know how do I even do this? Like, how do I even know that these people have porn in their bedside tables? Maybe I was just like a creeper, as a Snoopy kid. Definitely a Snoopy kid, that's for sure. And so, I would see like posters on like people's garages and things, and be like really intrigued, like, wow, that's pretty interesting. So here we are. So now, during the draft, I'm picking, and we're making our big piles, and we end up each having a lot of porn magazines. Essentially, we each had about probably 25. And I was very crafty and very clever. I did a lot of really interesting, shady things as a kid, but I would just rarely get caught. When I work with teenagers that are just getting in trouble a lot, I kind of poke them and I provoke them. Gosh, you are like the worst criminal. Like, you get caught all the time. I'm like, I know. Like, not me. I was super sleuthy. But in this situation now, my mom knocks on the room. Hey, what are you guys doing in there? And, oh, Mom, we're just hanging out. It's like, come on, what are you guys really doing? I'm coming in. So we moved the bed over. I was like, no, Mom, don't come in. Now, my mom she's a tough woman. I've told a lot of stories about her. So now she's barging into the room, and she sees the porn magazines everywhere. And so now I'm bummed, because now she's saying this is wrong. I'm going to call your parents. You got to throw this stuff away. So, of course, I throw it away in the recycle bin, and the two dudes go home. Now, they got no porn, and now I got about, 75 porn magazines. But, I mean, that's a lot of porn. So what I do is, like a crafty little criminal that I was, I only throw away a portion of it. And then we're going to put a stash here, put a stash here, put a stash here. I'm just super curious. So then, two things proceeded to happen after that in the months preceding. One is I started looking at a lot of pornography magazines and doing what young boys do too when they look at pornography magazines. And then the second thing that also happened was I proceeded to get caught, right? Because, imagine being like, my mom or my stepdad, and you're up here trying to find the Lysol cleaner, and you're like, what the heck is going on here? And then you're going over here trying to get the Christmas lights out, and all of a sudden you got boobs on your face because it fell on you. Right? Just trying to make a joke right there. But here's the reality is now, pornography today is completely different than what pornography was when we were growing up. Because essentially what happened was there's this rap group that came out of Florida, and they were called 2 Live Crew. And they had an album called As Nasty As They Wanna Be. And for the first time ever, there was a artist that was really glamorizing not only pornography, sex, sexuality, premarital sex, prostitutes, and just pimps, alcohol, drugs. It was like very obscene. Now, you probably, if you're about 44 years old or probably a little older, then you definitely remember this, and you might have even heard your friends getting it or going down to the Tower Records or whatever to try to get your hands on this album. But the American parents and the American government did something that was very important at that time. It's a really interesting story. I teach this story with slides and the backstory much better than this. They came out with this label, explicit content. But the label then, just to refresh your memory, and some of you young parents that are watching this replay video may not even know this, the label then was very different than the label then. The label then is that it made it illegal to sell pornography or a pornography-based like CD or tape to a minor. And it was legit. Some people did go to jail for it by selling these things to minors. Because the government did this because they knew that they didn't have the research on it. They didn't have the brain chemistry on it, but they just felt in their gut like, we do not want our minors looking at this. Now, fast forward to today, and you can still find that label everywhere. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Music. It's interesting, you can't find it on Netflix. They just have MA on there. That's really interesting, where they have pornographic scenes and really, drug glamorizing scenes through rated R and NA. But you find this on music. In fact, it's really interesting because, if your kid is on these playlists and stuff, they can be listening to this stuff, starting at age 7, which is so shocking because it's so different. But of course, the biggest news is that back in the day, there was just like a handful of magazines. And to get your hands on a magazine, you have to either get lucky doorbell ditching like I did, or you have to steal it from your grandpa's thing, or you have to go down into the store and you have to, put it on the counter and you have to purchase it and show some of your eyes. And now by the age of 12, a young male or a young female, because it's definitely not a male issue, could have looked at millions and millions and millions of images of not only naked people, but people doing all types of sexuality, because pornography is a distortion of reality by the age of 12. Isn't that just so shocking and sad and disturbing? By the age of 12, an unregulated, uncensored child. And what's super challenging is that these tech companies, they do not give an F about us. And so they are trying to improve, and new things are coming out. I just heard of something new that just came out just yesterday, is that I believe that Bark.us is now coming out with their own smartphone. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is like potentially game changing. And if it actually gets popular, which means you can give, your tween or your teenager a smartphone, and it's going to be easy to block certain sites on it without all this hassle and tassel. And what's interesting is I filmed this video, we're in January 2023. It's so much easier now than when I was working with parents when the iPhone 1 came out, which is so interesting. It's like these screens have not only changed our child, they've not only changed what it means to be a kid. It's not only changed what it means to be a parent, but these screens have changed what it means to be a human being, right? It's just so shocking. And pornography is just one app. It's just one example of all the stuff that is out there. And now you see, Playboy used to be kind of like something like special or hard to get to. But now you see kids walking in the mall, and you'll see that the Playboy brand has even become casual, like clothing. So you'll see like a middle school girl wearing a Playboy, like bunnies on her sweatpants, because or like on their T-shirt. I know this for a fact because of my daughter's friends have shown up in my house with effing Playboy on their thing, and they do not know that what happened after that for me is that I developed a very painful pornography addiction. So now I'm going off to my freshman year in college at Chico State, and this thing called internet pornography is out. So when my roommate is out of the room, I'm just looking at pornography, and it just feels like a drug. And I didn't know this at the time, but what it does is it has like a very similar drug-like effect to us. Not so much like pot, but somewhere more like cocaine, where it just rushes these hormones and these fluids through your brain and through your body. But we now know that, we have scientific evidence of brain chemistry and body chemistry, what it does, but that's not really what it does. Really what it does is that it creates a distorted intimacy reaction with that person, right? Because yes, many people can separate sex or pornography from intimacy. Like mostly you can do that with sex, and then you have to kind of work at it. You have to train your mind to just separate sex from any type of like intimacy. And there's even more and more research coming out about sex and hookup sex. It's very shocking. I'm not smart enough to quote you those quotes on it, but there's there's different people that are on social media that are like sharing type of things. There's this, and it's all very still kind of controversial because it's just such a personal topic. And I don't even know if this is true or not. You don't quote me on this, but I even saw one person was coming out saying that the amount of sexual partners that a female has impacts her enjoyment and her marriage when she gets married, and it even impacts the length of that marriage and the fulfillment of that marriage based on how many sexual partners she has. So now I'm just sitting here and I'm a college kid, and I'm like, this is too much. Like, I gotta stop this. I'm starting to look at girls, and I just like look at them in like a dirty or a dark or a perverted way. And I just say to myself, okay, I'm not gonna do this. kind of start feeling gross or perverted afterwards. And then I really commit to try to stop, but I also feel so much shame, right? I feel so embarrassed, like I'm a perv and there's something wrong with me because I'm just like doing it probably every day, sometimes more than once a day. And there's so much embarrassment because there's no one to talk to about this. I don't even know, it's like 1998. I feel like, I told my parents about it. I don't talk to them about anything. They're not in my life really at all. But, I'm not going to talk to my friends about it because, that's just too weird. And I don't have any mentors or anybody to share this. I'm not going to go to therapy for it. I don't go to therapy as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old college kid. So then what I did is I picked up a book. And I don't even want to name the book because it's such a horrible book. It's like some Christian book about it, and it's so bad. And while there were some good things in it, it just made things worse. It made me feel ashamed and sick and pervy and like, I gotta stop this. But there were some good things that did come out of it. And here's what I've learned. And I think that if you're talking to any type of person who claims to be an expert in the field of pornography, I do believe that they will agree with everything I said. But keep in mind, I don't specialize in pornography or pornography addiction. I just have a personal story. I've talked to a lot of men about pornography over the last 20, 25 years. I've talked to a lot of teenagers about it. I've talked to some females about it, but not too many, just for various reasons. And I do follow some pages on social media, like Fight the New Drug is probably one of the most popular, like anti-pornography or kind of movements. And I've also had a number of friends who have joined pornography addiction recovery groups or sex addiction recovery groups. And so here's what I've learned. Is that in my opinion, porn is just an intimacy disorder. Now we are able to label things as disorders left and right, but I've actually diagnosed myself as that. And I feel like I'm healed from this disorder. But I feel like if you look at my life, that freshman year of college, what was happening in my life? Well, one is I moved from San Diego to a Northern California town where there's just a bunch of partiers. Guys, my best friend was a super handsome dude. He looked just like Bob Marley. He's a black dude, hardcore druggie dude. He wore a shirt that said rehab is for quitters. He was such a chill guy. Like one of my best friends. Just so funny and cool to be around. But I didn't smoke pot that much or at all in high school. And then I go in now, and now I'm like surrounded by dudes doing coke. It was a big party school, big party culture. And so it was just felt really uncomfortable. Like I was homesick. I was having a hard transition to Northern California. I missed my old friends and I was lonely. And you see that transitions are a time that young people often start doing drugs, or transitions are times when people often start doing negative or painful things. You often find that if you've had a screen addict in your home, if you trace it back, you can potentially trace it back to, for some people, that roots to a transition to a transition. Now think about yourself too. Think about your life for a second, about your childhood, your teen years, your college years. Maybe a divorce happened. Maybe you moved. Maybe someone broke up to you. Maybe you your whole world is baseball, then you didn't make a team. Like these are all life moments, hard times that things happen, and they could just happen like overnight. But normally, what they happen is kind of like there's this. I can tell you lots of expressions about it, but here's one. Like if you throw a frog into a boiling thing of water, the frog is going to jump out of it quickly. It's going to be like, I'm getting out of this place. But if you put a frog in cold water or lukewarm water, and then you just turn it up, the frog is going to die. Why? Because it's the gradual temptation, the gradual behavior, the gradual change of the water, the frog doesn't even realize what's happening. And then before you know it, the water is so boiling and the frog is boiled to death. And that is exactly what happened to me. I did not physically die from my pornography addiction, but many things inside of me died. And it was a painful death, and there was something wrong with me. And but then something happened, is that then I started taking it more and more seriously. And again, I didn't have anybody to talk to because it's just so embarrassing. But something happened, is that when I would go home for breaks, my Christmas break or Thanksgiving breaks, even summer break, I would just be around my friends a lot, and I would work a lot, and I would make friends at my work, and I would try to chat with my family, and I would realize, like, I don't feel tempted to do this anymore. I would go on these surf trips down to Mexico, or I would just go and like do like a 3-night sleepover at my buddy's house, and I wouldn't think about it. So not only would I not look at pornography, I wouldn't even think about it. I started volunteering in like after school programs, churchy type stuff, and I would like get involved as like a 20-year-old like college kid, helping out with like youth group type stuff. And I would just go, and I was serving, I was volunteering, I was being a big brother. And I wouldn't even think about it. I would go on these trips, and I would come back, and I'm like, what is going on? I would be doing even like service trips at times, and not one time. And then I would come back, and the temptation would hit me. And I was like, what is going on with me? And what I realized is that, the temptation of pornography for most men and women is just it's a replacement for someone's lack of intimacy in their lives. Then I even started thinking, okay, well, where was I that freshman year of high school? And all through high school, where was I? Where was I? I was a young man who was really struggling with his parents, who had been abandoned by his own dad, who was really struggling of getting along with his very aggressive, command and control mother, and was struggling with, understanding my identity as a basketball player, and struggling with acne all around my face, and so that's, it's like this bonding take place. One of my best ways to understand addiction is just replace that word addiction with the word bonding. And if you're not interested in using that strong word as I'm an addict or this is addiction, just say this strong temptation, or in the recovery world, they call it craving. So I want to ask you in a second, as I wrap up this, I want to ask you if anything comes up for you in this. But here's the conclusion of this teaching here today. Thank you for your patience with me. Is that the way you can solve our kids' behaviors, our kids' bad patterns, is to always look under the surface. So for a kid who's abusing screens, well, if you take them to your local therapist, they're going to say, well, something stupid. They're going to say dumb stuff like, hey, do a screen contract. Or they're going to say, put limits on them. And they're not really going to understand probably how to get to the root cause of the screen addict. Because at the root cause of it, screens addiction is never about screens, that's for sure. And some dumb screen contract doesn't work, that's for sure. With screens, you've got to really reach the heart. And with any issue in our lives, we have to look into our hearts, into our kids' hearts. Because what's normally happening with the screen addiction is either there's an uncomfortable or distorted relationship with comfort, or it could be an intimacy experience where they're getting companionship from this experience on the screen. They're getting comfort. They're getting way more than just dopamine, because that's the name of a drug, a natural hormone in our brains. But they're also getting their desires met. So what happened to me is that I found a distorted way to find intimacy in my life, and this then makes me more tempted to do drugs or to find unhealthy ways of experiencing intimacy. So one of my questions I want to ask you in this thing: how in your life have you lacked true intimacy? And I'm not just talking about like romantic intimacy, intimacy with your friends, your parents, intimacy with your coworkers, intimacy with the person you bowl with, intimacy with the people in your world. You just kind of were physically with people, but you were kind of emotionally isolated from them. And then what happened was, like a frog in boiling water, you then found some other distorted or perverted or unhealthy relationship with something. And that could be your phone, that could be a hookup culture, that could be food, that could be TV, that could be alcohol. And I know this from personal experience that people can do this because they're looking at somebody who's had unhealthy relationships with all of those things. But here is the solution. The solution is start with yourself and start asking yourself in healthy ways, where are my friendships, right? Friendships. Like one of the big themes of this book, this is probably the world's most famous parenting book. I think it changed the world, The 7 Principles of Marriage. And I'm going to be doing a lot more teaching and videos on marriage, if that's okay with you. But one of the themes of that book is, you want to save your marriage? Well, nurture your friendship. Nurture your friendship. So if you look, what is friendship? Friendship is fun. It's intimacy. It's just hanging out. It's being wanted. It's wanting somebody else. It's just like sitting and doing nothing with somebody because you're friends. You're having a romantic relationship. It's your girl squad. And if you're really struggling with habits or addictions, well, here is a solution for you. Find more intimacy in your life, healthy forms of intimacy. Now, here's some things that I've found is that there's intimacy in just presence. Presence, not presence like Christmas, presence with that other spelling. Just being with someone and being present, because what I've found is that we are with people all the time, but we are so rarely present with them. We are so rarely present, just being sober-minded, listening. And you will see that when you really are intentional about presence, your world is going to change. Here's another tip. If your kids are really struggling and they're maybe acting out, they're doing perverted stuff online, they're abusing screens, they're drinking a lot, they're doing stupid stuff. Well, instead of looking at the surface and saying, oh, my kid is X, Y, this, use your parental power to say, you know what, how do I help my kid understand presence and intimacy and to nurture that more in their life? Or maybe I need to step up and give it. I got a client that is just really changing his life. Long story is that he just kind of get abandoned by his middle school and high school friends. And he's really hurting. Now, he's not acting out, but he's just in so much pain. And then, and one of the ways that I'm helping him to really grow, to heal, to change, and to get past this grief, and to step in with courage into social skills, and to get off screens and get out of his house, is I've told the parents, hey, like, your son really needs you right now. And so go and ask him, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to do something? Do you want to go do this? Do you want to go do that? Do you want to talk? Do you want to just be together? Because it's that type of kid that is not going to kill himself or commit suicide. It's that type of kid that's not going to find pornography or Norco or Valium or Xanax or alcohol or just do something stupid. Because why? Because his parents are there to provide that presence, that human connection. So I have found that there's so much intimacy in presence. I've also found personally that there's intimacy in prayer and meditation. However, whatever your jive is, just really being present with God or whoever you feel like is your God, or just being present with yourself in meditation. I found that there's really presence in church small groups. I found that there's presence in AA meetings. Like when I went to AA meetings, I went to about 4 or 5 like recently to kind of get my relationship with alcohol back on track. I've been sober for like about five months now. I'm gonna go at least a year without any alcohol, because I just realized, I started thinking, why do people come to these meetings? Like, they're kind of downers. I'm like, what's the point? Like, why do people even like this stuff? But one of the things that, one of my conclusions, that there's intimacy in this room. They're kind of strangers, but they're kind of not. They don't want to be strangers. They want to be a community of encouraging, supportive friends. And now I realize that is really like the key, because people go to these AA meetings and they tell stories. Just like I told you a story today, you've let me tell you a dark story from my life and how I've healed myself. And so then when I do have these temptations that come back for me to look at something on Instagram, or look at something on TikTok, or go look at something here, or click on this bait, or click on this ad, because just like majority of women and men, you know, I have temptations come for this bait clip stuff. I remember all the things that I've said here today. I remember there's no joy in that. That is a nasty trap. I will just be like that frog, and I don't want to go back to that. I want to be a healer and a hope dealer, and I want to find genuine forms of intimacy in my life, and I want to help my friends find it, and the people in the Parents Club to find it, and people watching this video to find it, and when my kids start hurting or going through it, I want to remember this. And remember, it's never about what it's about. You know, this person, are they feeling isolated? This child, are they feeling, left out? Are they feeling lonely? Why are they acting this way? And how can I, in this family, in this community, just love on this child? Maybe by putting your arms around it, but probably not, because hugs should be like, 8-9 seconds, and then that's probably long enough for a hug. Now let's do something together, like froyo, because dude, froyo is so good. But all right, so thanks for letting me share this with you.